Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Necromaniacs Horror Podcast. How's it going, Jeff?
It's going good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. And before we get rolling, I just want to make an announcement that if you haven't picked up your tickets for the Nightlands Festival, they're on sale. And you might ask me, what is the Nightlands Festival? If you love cosmic horror, weird fiction, gothic horror, anything in that realm, and you love really cool music and awesome artwork, then this thing is for you. And it's the inaugural Cadabra Records event of the year. And it's tactically scheduled on the days that they don't have Necronomicon. If you're a fan of that kind of thing, there's Necronomicon. Then the years they don't have it, they're going to try to have Nightlands Festival. It's June 2nd and 3rd at the Cathedral in Hamilton, New Jersey. So as you guys all know, I live in the Garden State. I'm going to be there. I did an episode with Chris Bozzone, who is one of the composers, last week on Everything Went Black. So you can check that out. We talk all about the label and the releasing of read text with musical accompaniment. That's basically what they do. It's vinyl versions of an audiobook, essentially. So that's a big event happening June 2nd and 3rd down in Hamilton, New Jersey. And, there's going to be a bunch of guests. John Padgett is going to be there. There's going to be musical stuff going on. There's going to be, artwork for sale, all sorts of really, really cool stuff. And there's also, and you might be interested in this too, Jeff. I'm not assuming you're going to fly here from Texas, but you never know. June 1st. There's a special event. It's a standalone event that's connected to the festival. And it's the release celebration of Pictures of the Apocalypse by Thomas Ligotti. And as you guys all know, he has been very inactive over the last years. And this is his first work in quite a while. And they're releasing that book. I pre-ordered it months ago, so it should be ready to roll soon. And that's going to have a reading of the poetry in the book by, I believe, John Padgett's going to be doing that. There's going to be musical accompaniment with Chris Bozzone. He's going to be doing a lot of that stuff. And it's going to be taking place at a different location. It's the Book Restoration Bindery in Haddonfield, New Jersey. And I'll be there for all 3 nights. If you're in the area, you want to come through, I'll be hanging out. Say hello. So go to cadaverrecords.com and pick up your ticket. I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that before we get going on everything.
Wow. I might have to make a trip out there for that if I can.
Dude, you should. I think it's going to be fun. Yeah,
it sounds fun. Now you're not performing, you're just going, right?
No, I'm just a, fucking friend of those guys, and I'm helping promote, and I'm not playing any music or anything. I'm just going to be there, hanging out.
Awesome. Always a fun way to enjoy something when you don't have to do anything. You're just there.
Oh, totally, man. It's like I was talking about this a few months ago when I went to Germany for the first time as just a guy hanging out, and how much fun I had instead of having to worry about my gear getting, through and having 4 other degenerate dudes with me. I just got on the plane and got off the plane and fucking left, and it was great.
Yeah, it's so much fun to do things like that.
Yeah.
Well, you've been checking out anything exciting other than what you just mentioned?
Yeah, a bunch of stuff actually. So we were talking earlier. I saw the Infinity Pool, which was great.
Oh, you did see it?
Yeah, saw that in a theater. I did my Friday night, jam, the late show at the AMC.
Yeah, it's your thing, man.
In Edison,
Yeah.
I saw History of the Occult on Frightbox. And I highly recommend that, man. It's if you don't mind reading subtitles, I assume everyone does not have a problem with that. It's on Frightbox exclusively right now, and it's like this black and white Lovecraftian sort of horror thing. I know it sounds like a documentary, but it's not a documentary. It's actually a narrative.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna ask.
Yeah, I also saw the Borderlands that actually has 2 titles. In the States, it's called Final Prayer, but the international title is The Borderlands, and it's a UK found footage horror film that has to do with these guys investigating this creepy church, and of course, it turns out that the priest has gone dark and is worshiping some ancient entity that may or may not live beneath this church. Really
that sounds great.
Yeah, it's cool. I'd seen it before, and then I was listening to Evolution of Horror, another a British podcast I listened to, and they were referencing that, and I was like, you know what? Let me check that out again. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that podcast, Mike. You turned me on to it. You mentioned it a while ago, and I just started listening to it this week. I listened to the episode you sent me. They did a whole series on folk horror, and I specifically listened to the Kill List one first. Great podcast, man.
I think it's fantastic, man. And they had Ben Wheatley on as an interview guest, which I thought was great.
Yeah, I'm glad that other people sing the praises of Kill List other than this podcast. It's literally, if you ask me, the best horror movie next to The Wicker Man ever made. So it's good that other people agree with me that it's truly a great horror film.
Yeah, and the Evolution of Horror crew, those motherfuckers are like on a different like sort of level because they're all like journalists and like work within that realm. So, they have access to certain people, which is like, like that people, the little people like us.
Yeah.
Don't necessarily, we don't have, we can't call up Ben Wheatley and be like, what's up, mate? Let's get on the horn and I want to talk to you about some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. These guys actually know what they're talking about, where I'm just rambling like a incoherent fool most of the time.
Yeah. A couple other things I saw, which are worth mentioning, is The Treatment. It's this Belgian crime film that I don't know how I happened upon it, but it's like one of those like tough, like hard-boiled. Just this one's super dark. It has to do with like abducting kids and stuff like that. It's not necessarily a horror film, but the set pieces of it are kind of like Silence of the Lambs. You know what I mean? How like there's nothing supernatural about it, but it's clearly a horror film.
Nice. You mentioned all kinds of good stuff today, Mike.
Yeah, and then we were talking about Outwaters, which I was planning on seeing tonight, which I am going to see, but the venue is going to be different. Instead of going to the AMC theater, I'll be watching it in the comfort of my living room because it's streaming on Frightbox now. Yeah,
I'm watching that tonight as well. Not tonight, tomorrow for sure. A lot of talk about this one. Not quite as divisive as Skinamarink. Its overall seems to have more positive feedback, whereas Skinamarink was pretty down the line. Well, not 50-50. It was more like 60-40. 60% of the people hated it and 40% liked it.
Now, this kind of ties into something else I wanted to just mention briefly. Like the Outwaters, my understanding is that it shares a little bit of a narrative sensibility that with Skinamarink. And that there's Skinamarink, I would say, is part of that analog horror sort of vibe that's been going on, that subgenre that's primarily based online on various YouTube channels. Now, are you familiar with that term, analog horror?
I am now, but it's I think it popped up when we were talking about Skinamarink. Which the episode's out now, you can listen to. But yeah, it seems to be like a newer term, kind of like how elevated horror wasn't a term until like a couple of years ago.
And this is like super underground, super DIY. It's like very much like anyone who's interested can contribute to this sort of thing. You know what I mean? And
right.
Through my research about Skinamarink, I ran across this another series called the Mandela Catalog, which. Maybe some of you guys have heard of this, like who are more apt to find things like this online than I am. But it's a part of the analog horror movement, for lack of a better term, brought to you by Alex Kister. And I caught a few of these episodes on YouTube. Just go to the YouTube channel, and this dude's got several volumes of this stuff that's available to watch now. And it's you can see where maybe this guy and the Skinamarink guy like are coming from the same place. They're younger people, like they're referencing stuff from like the 90s. There's like the sensibility of using handheld old school like video equipment and nostalgic things, childhood, ancient fears that go back into your childhood. And it's definitely worth checking out, and this Mandela catalog thing is, back from 2021. So it's not like this dude is ripping off, Skinamarink or anything.
Right. So it's sort of like a creepypasta kind of thing then.
That's exactly what it reminded me of. It's like a creepypasta sort of thing.
Cool. Well, hey, that sounds fucking great. I'm into it. Are you still watching The Last of Us?
I am, yes.
Nice, me too. I finally caught up last night. I think we're done with episode 5. What are your thoughts now that we're 5 episodes in?
I dig it. However, I'm a little too. I'm starting to get tired of the heartstrings. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I don't feel like there's like really a lot of that. Like we were commenting how the relationship between Joel and Ellie is not really like they haven't had a lot of bonding moments. It just sort of plot. So I guess I kind of feel the opposite that you do.
Well, I mean, there's like the episode with the couple, the gay couple.
Yeah, that was a great episode.
Yeah, with that diversion, it was I mean, I know there's some asshole out there who's going to be, it's because they're gay, man. You're a homophobe.
Yeah, right.
Trust me, I am the least homophobic dude you guys will ever know. Trust me on that one. And but I felt like a lot of that exposition, I didn't really need to know any of those things. Like as far as the overall story, I feel like that's like a big thing that could have been edited out. Similar to Apocalypse Now, how in the Redux version of Apocalypse Now, there's this whole other storyline where they run into this like French colony there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, it just, I don't know. It wasn't as tight. I felt like the whole, I know it's a series, it's not a movie, whatever, but it's like the whole thing just could have been tighter without that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you at all, but I did really love the episode. My problems with the show, and they're not a lot. Yeah, I guess these are just minor quibbles. Like, was when they got to the town. The town. Where are they? They're in St. Louis or something.
Yeah.
It's just a few. I don't want to spoil the show, but I also, but I don't buy that actress. I forget her name. She's from New Zealand. She starred Peter Jackson. Her first movie was a Peter Jackson movie, Heavenly Creatures. I forget her name. I don't buy her as a big heavy. You know what I mean?
Are you talking about the little girl or who?
No. Like when they get to St. Louis, there's like a rogue leader. Like, resistance leader.
Yeah, we texted about this. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I just, like she's playing like the big bad, or at least she thinks she's going to be. But like, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I buy that. I don't know.
I agree, man. She was totally miscast. You know what I mean?
Yeah. She's great. I like her in pretty much everything she's in. But in this, I was like, I don't know. You don't do anyone any favors by miscasting them. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I mean, because like as soon as she showed up on camera, I was like, all right, she's going to be like someone who takes care of people. She has like this nurturing aesthetic about her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but then she's like this vicious, like very Machiavellian sort of character, and that definitely did not work for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the character's cool. Just maybe a different actress. I don't know. These are just overall, I'm enjoying the show. For a video game adaptation, it is leaps and bounds above what I thought it was going to be. Because I would say most video game adaptations are pretty bad.
I think we should do a whole episode with the three of us again when this thing wraps up first.
Yeah, I'd love to. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll get our ideas about this thing out there to everyone.
Absolutely. A couple other things I've been checking out. Because of Skinamarink, I've been kind of on a David Lynch kick.
Oh, okay.
And I'm rewatching Twin Peaks: The Return.
Yes.
I have not watched it really since its initial run. Talk about divisive. I mean, people were pretty split on that when it came out. And I loved it when it came out. It's pretty much what I expected it to be. This is David Lynch's return to this world. It's his return to the director's chair. He hadn't done anything since 2006's Inland Empire. And I kind of like compared it to like the Swans reunion. Like if you want this like nostalgia trip of like this band you used to like revisiting their old hits or whatever, you're gonna be really disappointed. And that's exactly what Twin Peaks: The Return was. It is not like the nostalgia trip of like, hey, remember how quirky and weird our show was? It was very much a David Lynch, 19-hour film.
Yeah, no, I agree. I loved it. I revisit certain episodes. I haven't watched it from the beginning though in a while, and yeah, I expected it to be exactly what it was, like the modern version of what he's doing. And if you're looking, well, once again, exactly what you said. If you're looking for a nostalgia trip, you got the wrong guy.
Yeah, exactly. If it's the last thing he ever does, he went out with a fucking bang. I love David Lynch. Doesn't really do much anymore. I think he's 80 now, 79, somewhere there, I hope to see more from him, but if this is it, he went out on a very high note.
I can imagine him doing something else. I mean, Cronenberg, put out, he's been active again,
Yeah, and his last film was fantastic.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. Well, maybe enjoyed is the wrong word, but I really liked it. Last thing I wanted to mention was, and I'm sure you've seen this, In Search of Darkness 3.
Oh, yeah, of course, man. Right away. I as soon as I went up, I was like, all right, this is what I got to watch this afternoon. For sure.
Yeah, we watched it in a few different, I think it took us like 2 nights to get through the whole thing, but man, what a fantastic series. I love, you watch the first In Search of Darkness and you're like, I've seen every single movie they're talking about. And the longer it goes on, the more kind of obscure they get, to the point where I'm like, man, I haven't seen a bunch of these. I thought I'd seen every 80s horror movie there ever was.
Yeah, that's flipping the coin, and now we're talking about nostalgia. That was I totally enjoyed it, man, and yeah, and of course, I broke it up into a couple different sittings, but I gotta say, one night, this is the kind of thing I put on like at the end of the night when I'm tired, you know what I mean, and I'm just kind of like getting ready to hang it up for the day.
Yeah.
So one night I fell asleep with it on, and when I woke up, it was still playing. So it was like I fell asleep on the couch, and I woke up at like 5 a.m. or whatever, and it was still on.
Yeah, it's quite long. It's quite thorough, though. I like I really like it. I hope these keep going. I hope they do the 90s and then the early 2000s. I mean,
yeah.
One thing Skinamarink showed us is, Pete, there is a nostalgia for the 90s, which I think is maybe a little bit difficult for guys our age to think about, because that was like the beginning of adulthood for us, not childhood.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was an adult in the 90s. Yeah, but kids who grew up, say like they were born 89 or whatever. Yeah. Now they're like approaching 40. You know what I mean? So it makes sense.
And the 90s don't have a ton of great horror, but maybe I'm just not like thinking deeply about it. But I mean, I can't off the top of my head rattle off a lot of great 90s horror movies.
Well, for me, that's when I'd sort of discovered like the Italian films, like giallos and
right,
like more like Asian horror films, and then towards the end of the 90s, that's when all those French extremity films started happening.
Yeah, was that the 90s?
It was the late 90s, but we didn't really start. It wasn't as well known in the States until after the 21st century, like 2003 or 4. But I remember like 89, not 89, 98, 99, starting to hear about like Claire Denis and people like that.
Right, yeah. I remember like the early 2000s, like the big Japanese horror remake boom. Yeah. Like you had The Ring in 2002, and then just everything else. Like for the next couple of years, everything was either a remake of Japanese horror or like deeply inspired by. So I'd love to see them tackle the 90s, and maybe I'm misremembering. I'm sure I know there's great movies made in the 90s. I just not a ton of classics, I guess.
Well, if there are films that we missed, these guys over at In Search of Darkness, I'm confident that they'll find it. Oh,
absolutely, yeah. Great series, man. I really really love it. That's pretty much it, man.
Hey, I meant to ask you, did you are you interested at all in seeing Knock at the Cabin?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
M Night
have
Shyamalan.
you
Yeah,
seen it yet?
I have not. No, I don't leave my house.
Yeah,
It's becoming a problem. Um, no, I did want to see that. I'm sure it'll be streaming in a couple weeks. Did
yeah.
you want to see that? Did you read the book?
Oh yeah. No, I read the Tremblay book, Cabin at the End of the World, because I remember
Yeah.
I was actually going to see Skinamarink, and they're showing the previews, and I was like, wait, this is Cabin at the End of the World.
Yeah.
'Cause it's
Much
like,
better title, by the way.
well, that's the thing, man. And it's like at the end of the trailer, they have Shyamalan's name across the entire fucking screen. And I'm like, well, they didn't even mention Paul Tremblay, and he wrote the goddamn book. And I was like, what about Paul Tremblay? And what's up with changing the title to a sentence that doesn't even make any fucking sense in a syntax kind of way, you know?
Right. Yeah. And Shyamalan, is he still a selling point to audiences? I mean,
I always thought that guy was kind of whack, actually.
nah, he's made some good movies. He definitely did. The Sixth Sense was good. It's a solid movie. Unbreakable's fantastic.
Yeah.
Signs is pretty good.
Yeah, no, he's got
it's
some good stuff out there for sure. But I always feel like maybe it's a recency bias thing with him where I feel like he hasn't done much interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah, he always sort of like gave like his movies like this kind of Spielbergy sheen, or like maybe it's like the pro faithness of his films. Something about his movies kind of bothered me too, and
Yeah.
maybe it was the height too. Like when you take that away from it and just go back and watch his older films, you're like, oh, these actually are pretty good.
Yeah, it's funny. He's that way, and I know people love Paul Tremblay, and I like Paul Tremblay. I'm not saying that I don't like his writing, but he's kind of like the Bad Company of writers for me. You know what I mean?
Really?
I never think to listen to Bad Company. You know what I mean? But it's like,
Yeah, me neither.
if I hear like a Bad Company song, I'm like, oh, this is fucking sick. You know what I mean? This is actually good. And I feel like Tremblay, and there are people who love him, and when I do read his work, I like it. You know what I mean? But it's not. I don't get stoked about a new Paul Tremblay book. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like, I'm like,
Sure.
oh, I'll get to that someday. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I hear what you're saying.
I heard he's a really cool guy too. I know some people who know him personally, and I'm like, apparently he's like really cool. That's why I'm just being honest, man. You know, that's all I got to say.
Well, it should be streaming soon. We should check that one out.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna go see that one for sure.
Yeah, right on. The movie we're covering today, a little kind of a obscure gem.
Before we do that, though, we got to shout everyone out. Of course,
Yes, I forgot.
we got Brandon Legion bringing you Horror Wolf 666 on Mondays. Tuesday, we have Jackie Smits Into the Necrosphere, which is literally the only extreme music podcast I listen to. I have been listening to the Heavy Hole podcast here and there, but Into the Necrosphere is where it's at for me. You know, every week I look forward to it. I was really bummed when Jackie went away on vacation. You know, like I don't give a fuck that he had a good time. I had a bad time without his show every week during the holidays. You know.
Yeah, what a prick.
Wednesday is Everything Went Black, which I mentioned earlier, which you can hear all sorts of stuff on there, not just music. I have, authors, filmmakers, just, sometimes it's just a bunch of people talking about a certain subject, that kind of thing. Of course, Thursday is Necro Thursday, which is the day you're listening to this show. Friday, we have Break the Apocalypse featuring John Draper, not Skindato. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Sunday, the Lord's Day, Carl Hikara brings you Soul Knocks, and I'm actually going to be on an episode of that coming up, so check it out. And
Nice.
once you're done with this, head over there, and we got you covered pretty much 6 out of 7 days of the week. On Saturday, go out. The weather's getting nice. Take in some vitamin D through the sun. That kind of thing.
And I should mention, I am going to be on Horror Wolf 666 as a guest. I think we're going to talk next week.
Awesome. That's great, man.
Yeah, it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
So this week's episode, we're actually going to be covering something that was on your, and I'm still protesting this, by the way.
Hey, man, it
on
counts.
your 2022 top films list, and of course we're talking about Bull, which showed up on your list. But based on the information I have, this movie came out in 2021. But what do I know?
Hey, okay. I think I explained this on the when I put it on my list. It did get a UK release in 2021, but its American release was not till 2022. So it counts as a 2022 movie for me. Much like Old Boy, I think it got its Korean release in something like 2004, but that movie was on every 2005 top 10 film list in 2005. So that was my justification. All right, if we didn't see it, we didn't get it until that year, then it counts as that year.
All right, fair enough. I'm just a little salty because I would have put it on my list because I love this movie so much.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're the one who told me about it. I had no idea this movie existed, and you were really, really hyped on it. So I watched it and was like, "Holy shit, this is fucking great!" And we even recorded an episode about it.
Actually,
didn't we, Mike?
This is true. This is the lost episode that we're re-recording because my computer crashed and this wasn't saved up on the iCloud. So it was a fucking mess actually. But now we're getting to it.
Yeah, and happy to talk about it because it made me rewatch it again this morning actually, and that would be the third time I've watched this, and it still feels fresh. It's still like I'm still discovering new things about it.
Yeah, I picked up the UK Blu-ray release of this too. I think I might have posted some photographs of it. It's a really nice package, with like a book and all this other stuff associated with it. It's great.
Deserving of such a release too. But yeah, over here, I don't know, maybe in the UK people feel different about it. Over here, I don't know anyone that even knows this movie exists other than our little crew.
And if you guys this sounds like something you're into, check it out on Showtime while it's on Showtime. It's been on there for a while. And actually Rennie, our quality control manager, Rennie, is the one who told me about it. So it's on Showtime. Definitely check it out. You don't have to rent it or anything like that,
Yeah, or you can rent it on Amazon for less than $3. So if you got $3 burning a hole in your pocket, and you don't have Showtime, check it out.
Well, let's do some of the technical stuff first. So the movie is 88 minutes long. So in a world where movies are now 1 hour and 40 minutes long, this movie is 88 minutes. So there you go. Right there. I'm impressed by that. Directed and written by Paul Andrew Williams, a guy that I've never even heard of before.
No, me neither.
Yeah, and I looked up his filmography, and it's a bunch of stuff in there, but I haven't seen any of it.
Yeah, me neither.
And none of it even looks like it's even in the same genre as this film.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So the starring, the cast includes Neil Maskell as Bull. Now that you guys will remember it, maybe not, but you should remember Neil from Kill List.
Yes.
He's him and Michael Smiley are like the main dudes in that. We have David Heyman as Norm, his father-in-law. Tamsin Outhwaite as Sharon. And Lois Braben Platt as Gemma, his wife, or technically, I guess it is his wife.
Yeah, technically, yeah.
Yeah. And those are the main characters. There's he has a son, Aiden, but he's played by like a young actor, and then there's like a time jump, so there's two different people playing him.
Yeah, this movie kind of goes back and forth between the present and 10 years into the past, and maybe a little confusing for people at first, but this movie really sets up its world very, very well. Not a lot of exposition or anything like that. It just sort of throws you right into this. Movie opens up with like a smoldering kind of hole, and then you're right in a car with Bull. And then one of the more interesting scenes, Bull's looking for a gun. He's got the guy's got a gun for him, but only 3 bullets. It just, again, I just thought it was interesting that like UK crime movies are so much different than American crime movies. Wouldn't you say?
Well, I was going to bring that up because gun violence is a different trip over in the UK. Like people get stabbed or like beaten to death or get cut up with like glasses and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's more how people get fucked up in the UK. And the fact that he had to go all these lengths to get a gun and it's got 3 bullets. And then there's the Ben Wheatley movie, Down Terrace?
Down Terrace, yeah, great movie.
This movie has a lot of similarities with Ben Wheatley's work in general, and specifically that movie and Kill List, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And getting a gun, like in Down Terrace, was like a whole other thing. Like in the States, like over here, I could probably get a handgun in like maybe 2 hours from now. If I could probably have one in my possession if I wanted to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You'd probably just knock on one of my neighbor's doors.
Yeah, well, yeah, for you.
It's a different thing. And it kind of I always think like the UK crime movies are a little bit more brutal because it's not like gun violence. It's a little bit more personal and up close violence. With a gun, you can shoot someone from far away, or you don't have to. Stab someone. You really got to be close. You got to get in there, and it's so much more visceral and disturbing. And
I'm just gonna say it right now. We're gonna spoil this movie. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
And it's not about that. The story is simple. This movie is very, very. It's not even about the story, really. It's about the whole atmosphere and the brutality and just the acting, and just the characters. That's really what this is about. The story is very, very straightforward.
It is. It's almost like I don't quite understand how this movie works so well. It is perfect. 88 minutes long, does not wear out its welcome at all, and it doesn't feel rushed. And it's not really a ton of plot or exposition or even there's not even like a ton of dialogue in the movie. But man, it just works. It is so efficient, and there's not an ounce of fat on this movie.
Well, let's give some context as to who Bull actually is. So Bull is a contract killer essentially, and he's involved with a crime family, and Norm is the main man in the crime family. Bull marries Norm's daughter, Gemma, and there's 2 daughters. There's Gemma and Sharon. Okay, and so now he's connected not as only an employee, but he's a relative to the patriarch of the crime family.
Yes.
Now, as you can imagine, the 2 daughters, and specifically Gemma, are a bit of they're kind of like wildcats. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Norm is all about his blood family, like his family. Like he doesn't give a shit about anybody except for his daughters, really.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Everyone's expendable. Everyone's collateral damage. Doesn't matter. He just cares about them. Now, later on, I want to comment on that too. There's like only, if I could say not even a flaw, but one leap that you have to make is something that comes up later with Gemma and the father, and I will get to that though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it sort of sets up this. Another like kind of difference I've noticed in like a film like this in Down Terrace is crime is not really glamorous in this movie, or kind of like most British crime. It's very like low rent kind of. It's not like this like swanky gangster, like nice suits, nice restaurants, really high class. It's very like low rent, low class. Like it doesn't seem like a big organized crime ring. This is not John Gotti and his family. This is just this one guy, this one crew, and he's just this menacing dude.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a whole like subgenre of films that, and this loosely fits into it. I mean, this has supernatural elements to it, but like even that movie, The Stranger, with Sean Harris in it and Joel Edgerton, the Australian film.
Yeah.
Like those style of Australian films and these British, hard cunt movies like this,
Yeah.
are like they have such a similar vibe because you get the sense that a lot of these like crime families, they're on the lower end of things like you were mentioning, but there's this sense of a hierarchy that goes further up the ladder, and these guys are definitely on the lower rung of the ladder.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that Bull was a contract killer. I got the vibe that he was Norm's muscle.
Yeah,
Like,
maybe I misspoke. That he was definitely like a heavy in the crime family, so he's not like some freelance killer guy. Yeah.
yeah. And I think you realized right from the beginning that Bull is on a mission for revenge. And I mean, revenge films are kind of a dime a dozen now, aren't they, Mike? I mean, it's almost like fucking the McDonald's of genre movies. You can go anywhere and get a burger from McDonald's or something like that. But every once in a while, you get something like this, like a real gem that does it a little bit differently. And even though it is so straightforward, it leaves you thinking. It gives you a lot to think about in the end. This movie doesn't really quite judge any of the characters really at all. This is just kind of presents it as it is. It's a crime family. This is a guy who was a bad guy who feels he was very wronged and he's going to do something about it.
So there's been like about a 10-year period, and
10 years.
The movie goes forward like in two different timelines. So there's like it starts in the present time where you see Bull trying to get his gun. He starts catching up with some of these people, and they're just like, "How are you here?" At first viewing, you're like, "What the fuck?" This guy go away. He went to the States or went away somewhere for like 10 years. But you're starting to, as time goes on, and the between the two different storylines, it starts to paint a picture of what happened in the past. One of the first people that he kills is Sharon and her husband. And he's like, it turns out that he's looking for Aiden, his son, and Gemma, because he wants, fucking. The thing about Bull, and I guess this parallels Norm, the same love that Norm has for his daughters, this like ride or die, like love for his family. Bull has that for Aiden. Bull genuinely loves his son and wants only the best things for him, and that's what you get right away in the sketch of his character.
Yeah, and like Norm, nothing matters to Norm except for his kids, and Bull is somewhat of a mirror image of him. The only thing that matters to him is Aiden, and he kind of expressly, even later in the film, he kind of actually just says that like. Like she can take everything. Aiden is he basically says the only thing that matters to him.
Yeah. So through the flashbacks, we kind of see the dissolution of Bull's relationship with Gemma. That's a funny scene though when they have the first flashback where everything's in slow-mo.
Yeah, I did notice. Yeah, there's a little bit of like a sense of humor. It was like overly stylish, or like it doesn't fit in with the rest of the movie until much later. At the end, there is a very stylized slow motion shot, which. Not a complaint, but just like, interesting, But I caught that too.
Yeah, where they're at this cookout, and this is when things are sort of on the outs, where you see Bull interacting with his son, and Gemma's there, Sharon's there, and a lot of the crew are at this cookout, and of course Norm is manning the grill,
Yeah, because he's in charge of everything.
He's in charge. You get that sense.
Yeah.
So he has a word with Bull, and that's when you kind of realize, like, Gemma's been planting these seeds of discontent. Like he asked Bull straight off, "Have you been mucking about with anyone?" And meaning that's if he's seeing anyone on the side, and Bull's like, "No. I could barely keep her happy. My whole mission is like just, taking care of your daughter or whatever,
Right.
Now, at that point, you kind of see her like she's the one who actually is straying outside of the relationship.
Yeah. And Gemma's a piece of work, wouldn't you say?
She reminds me about, I don't know, 6 or 7 women that I've known in Boston. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's like the version of like UK's version of like trailer park kind of.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know
yeah, totally.
you know what I mean. I think they have their own word for it over there. Um, yeah, Gemma is just sort of like you can tell she's sick of Bull and she wants him like she's devising this sort of plan to get him out of the picture. Yeah, like Bull's cheating on me, Daddy, or things like that. And you learn that like Gemma, yeah, she's stepping out. She's also a junkie.
Yes.
And again, in Bull's mind, now I don't think Bull and Norm, like we talked about, are that different.
No,
like
they're not.
You would think Norm would have a huge problem with his daughter behaving like this, but Norm sort of gives it a pass because it's his daughter.
Now this is the one. Now I guess it'd be a good time to bring up my one little tiny gripe about this thing. It's like, Norm is willing to go to whatever lengths he can to make sure his daughter's happy. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, at some point, Bull reveals to him that she's a junkie. Now, don't you think that Norm would have like murdered every single person who ever sold heroin to her?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And he would have like straightened it out like in his own brutal way. I think now that's the only thing that you got to make a little bit of a leap for that. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, no, yeah, I get that, which is interesting because Bull kind of does the very same thing later in the film.
Yeah.
But Norm is one of the most, not a huge part, but really, really well played by the actor. I'm sorry, I forgot his name. There's something about a really nice old man, someone you would see walking, that like a guy walking, oh, look at this old guy. You wouldn't really give it too much of a thought, but he is a fucking monster, and he does it through very subtle things in his performance. Not like, never really like blows up or loses. It's like a quiet rage with him.
Yeah, David Heyman. That's the guy's name.
Okay. I don't know if I've seen him in anything, but he's fantastic in this.
Yeah, definitely. And once again, when we used to live in Boston, right? You go through some of these neighborhoods like that are filled with all these Irish people, Irish Americans. Not to you guys out there in Ireland are different thing.
Yeah.
We're talking about Irish Americans here in Massachusetts,
particularly Boston Irish.
Particularly Boston Irish. You'd see some of these old guys, man. I would see guys like that. You know what I mean? Like I never spent a whole lot of time in South Boston, but like I've been through that area a fair amount of times, and like you'd see these old guys, man, and you just like they just got something in their eyes. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much like what Norm's character is. He's like. I would walk by some old man, and I'm like, that guy's taking lives. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. There's just something in their look, something, the way they look at you can just tell, like, yeah, this old timer means fucking business.
Yeah.
And a great scene that really shows the range of like how methodical and evil Norm is the scene. Okay, so a couple people have died now. Also, you got the sense that of the two daughters Norm has, he really cares about Gemma the most because his other daughter is killed at the beginning of the film. And he's upset, but he seems more upset of like, you don't do this. This is my daughter. He doesn't seem upset like, oh, I lost a daughter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's definitely daddy's girl, Gemma, for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe that's why she's enabled to do some of the things that she's done.
Yeah, because Gemma sort of manipulates Norm in a way. It's like almost like Gemma's running the show in a strange way in the past time frame, not in the current one. You know what I mean?
Right.
You could see she had his ear. I should say.
Now, one thing I want to bring up though, which I want to know what your thoughts are on this, and it's a minor thing, but it's just part of the color of the characterization. Whenever you see Norm and his crew, they have like these like work vests on and stuff. Like
yes,
they like these they look like flagmen or something. Guys that do like highway work. Now, do you think that like crime is like a side business for them, or that's just their thing? They're like the crime crew that has like the road worker gear on.
Oh, I would much like like the mafia in America. You know how they have their hands in like sanitation and things like that. I I thought it was something like that. Like they've got some like roadside crew that's also sort of like some way to like cover up their crime or
Oh, right,
their
yeah.
like do like laundering their crimes through that. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
okay,
Like
I
how
got you. Like how
on
Tony
the Sopran.
Soprano, yeah, he has
Yeah,
like
exactly.
the
I mean
trash business.
sanitation.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
gotcha. Yeah, okay, I was.
yeah. That's what I took away from that. I could be off base, but that's what I was thinking. It feels like there was a subplot cut from this movie. I'll say that. Like,
They really took it to another level though with the believability of that these guys are like road workers though, because like
yeah,
Norm's actually wearing the gear of a guy that's like a flagman or something like that at certain points of the film.
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, they probably got to, have some legit income or some sort of front for their illegal income. You do get a hint that like they're somehow involved in the meat business too.
That seems
You
like
know,
that seems like a sketchy business to be involved in. Meat.
yeah, and that you just get a great scene of like how menacing Bull is, and Norm too, where he's like trying to force a guy to sign a contract, and then Bull cuts his fingers off, and Norm says, "You were going to sign that anyway. Why'd you make me do that?" Which one of the best scenes in the movie. But the scene I wanted to talk about with you, Mike, is that shows Norm in his worst. It's the scene with Bull's mother.
Oh man, dude.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude. So yeah. So like at this point, Bull has killed a few of Norm's guys, and of course, Norm being Norm takes it personally, and he thinks this is crazy. Bull can't be back. They don't tell you why. They don't tell you why at this point. But like Norm's like, no, Bull can't be back. It can't be him. So in his mind, he goes to Bull's mother for answers, thinking this has everything to do with her. And he comes to her as a friend. And by the end of the scene, Norm shows his true colors to Bull's mother. Like this whole like, oh nice, let's have a cup of tea. Like that front goes out the window almost immediately when he's like, what the fuck is going on? This has something to do with you. And he says something, says, I'm gonna cut you till I find out, or something like that. It was really chilling.
Yeah. And even the guys in his crew are like, you sure about this, Norm? Like to them, they were just like, this is like an old lady. This is like, Bull used to be part of our crew. This is his mom, like it just, yeah. And then it's just so brutal, and that's like the part of the film where you start actually really despising Norm as a person.
Right. Well, everyone in this movie is a bad guy. Bull is the anti-hero, but he's not a good person.
No, he's definitely not a good guy at all. But you're looking forward to when Norm gets his just desserts, though. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the first lines you hear from Bull when someone goes, "Where have you been?" He goes, I was in hell." That line has more resonance than you expected later on in the movie. But so yeah. Another interesting thing about that scene, Bull. This is the one part that I was like, I need to go over this with Mike. I wonder what he thinks. Bull lets this happen.
He does
with his mom
because he's creeping out in the woods, like he's like barely concealed by the greenery, and like he observes him going into his mother's house.
Yeah, that's such a great scene, by the way it's shot all one take, and you realize. I rewound it. Like he's there the whole time.
Yeah, like you barely notice him at first, and then
Yeah.
they kind of like zoom in a little bit on him, and then like, oh geez, look at this guy.
Yeah. So why do you think he let that happen? And then basically, like Norm leaves the mom for dead, but she's not dead. And Bull, I got the sense that Bull took care of it, like finished the job.
Yeah, well, he asks her, "Is like, do you want me to help you?" Like. Because he can see that she's mortally wounded, and they show him looking at her wounds, and she's like bleeding out. You know what I mean? She's got like internal like injuries or something from the.
It was a mercy killing, then. Yeah.
Yeah, so he like suffocates her, which is a pretty. That's not like an easy way to kill somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very. Yeah, and especially your own mother.
Yeah.
Why do you think Bull let that happen? Why do you think he didn't stop Norm right then and there? He had him.
That's a good question. You know, I've been trying to figure that out myself. Is like he had everything in his power to take out the entire crew at that point.
Right.
You know,
Which,
but he wouldn't have known where Gemma and Aiden were though if he'd killed everybody.
yeah, that was his main goal. Killing everyone was inevitable, but his main goal was Aiden. Although another interesting thing, and I didn't write down the characters. He lets one guy live.
Yeah, I forgot that guy's name too, but he does let that one guy live.
And that is such a menacing scene too, where Bull kind of rolls up on this dude in Norm's crew with his two kids, and Bull is just antagonizing him and his kids, basically threatening them, like, "Look at you, little piggies, and you must be Daddy Piggy."
Well, that's also the guy that I think Bull perceives as being the weakest out of all of them. Because remember when it actually comes down to the meeting with Norm. And that dude,
Yes.
the same guy that he lets live is sitting next to Norm. He's like, "What are you doing here?" You know, he's
Yeah.
like, then he goes to like glass him or something like that. He pulls the glass back like he's gonna cut him with it.
Yeah, like he's gonna stab. Yeah, he's basically a joke to Bull.
Yeah,
I got that sense, and you get the sense that that guy was the weakest link too, because when they throw Bull in the trunk, he goes, "Sorry, mate," or something like that. You know, like he's probably the nice guy of the crew.
the funniest part though is when he's with the guy's kids, you know, and Bull's in the bumper car with his son.
Oh my God!
And the son is like laughing and having like a great time. It's like, "Oh, you know, Uncle Bull, you know, this is great." It's like, I thought that was there is a little bit of humor in this too, and mainly towards the end, there's some humorous parts. You know.
Yeah, dude, I thought that scene was hilarious too, because the kid's having like the time of his life. Bull just is like mad dogging the guy like the whole time, and they got these like fucking cotton candy sticks. Yeah, I just felt terror for that guy. Like he's standing there with a fucking like this demon after him.
It's literally a demon. And now I guess we'll spill the beans about some of this stuff. Okay, so through a series of flashbacks, we see that, you know, Gemma wants out of the relationship, so she manipulates and she wants to keep Aiden. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, she's hooked on heroin and she's like living that low life, you know. And I wonder why she even wanted to hang on to Aiden. It's more out of like a vindictiveness against Bull.
That's what that's kind of the conclusion I came to as well. She does not care about Aiden. And she doesn't care about the guy she's cheating on Bull with. We learned that she dumped him pretty quick.
Yeah, and she also abandons Aiden too, as we see.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's totally out of spite. It has to be.
So she's you know, Bull gets abducted by the crew, and they bring him out to a caravan. You know, that's a trailer for us in the States here. And Norm kind of lays it on him. It's like, look, you got a choice, man. You know. You either leave, we never see you again, or, you know, we're gonna take care of you, you know.
Yeah, and I love Bull's answer when Norm asks, like, "Be honest," or like, "What would you do if you get out of this?" And Bull says, "Honestly," and then Norm goes, "You're an honest guy." And Bull's like, "I'll fucking kill all of you." And Norm's reaction, like, "Yeah, I thought so." Like, yeah, it's kind of funny.
It is funny, you know. And then they bring Gemma in there. You know, and it's like that scene in, you know, in some like Roman gladiator scene where it's either the thumbs up or the thumbs down, you know. And she's like, "I want to see him burn," or some brutal thing, you know. So, yeah,
so brutal. Yeah, you feel for Bull in this scene. You really do. Bull doesn't seem afraid to die at all. He's not worried. He knows he's going to die. But his sadness comes from what's going to happen to Aiden. He knows the path Aiden's going to go on without him in his life.
Yes.
With just the mother and Norm running things. That's the only sadness from Bull. Bull's accepted his fate at that moment, but you still feel for him. It's a brutal scene. Like someone you're married to, your wife, the mother of your child, just complete betrayal like that. It's brutal.
Yeah, I mean, my ex-girlfriend, like, I wouldn't want to see her burned alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Gemma wants to see just that. I mean, not even like not even shooting him, burning him alive. That's so. Ugh. I mean, that is a serious fuck you to him. And again, another moment where we see that gangster is sort of Bull comes flying out of the trailer on fire, and one of the guys like, please just shoot him. This isn't like he has a sense of morality. Like this is not a good way to die. So again, maybe that's why Bull spared him. I don't know.
Could be, yeah, that he was the only one with like a shred of decency out of everyone.
Yeah, and you really, this scene also really makes you hate Gemma even more. Like, why, like, she would be on an episode of Cops over here in America if she was a real person. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely, man.
Getting arrested for like fucking being drunk in front of on the front lawn.
Yeah, totally.
With fucking the shirt half on. She brings Aiden to Aiden's father's execution, to Bull's execution, and even Norm is like, what the fuck is he doing here? And Gemma's like, well, what else was I going to do with him? And that moment really, really made me hate that character.
Totally, man. Like, she's like the worst of the worst. So now we know what happened to Bull, okay? And we know 10 years later, he has arisen from the gates of hell to seek revenge and hopefully, some retribution for his son,
Yeah. He's basically like an evil version of the Crow. Pretty
much. Yeah, very much.
Yeah, the angel of death, coming for revenge.
Yeah.
It's so the way, like, even like he kind of like, there's so much peripheral damage in this movie too. Like the mother, like some of the people who were just dating these gangsters, or like just anyone in Bull's way. It's just like, you're gonna die. Like he even contemplated killing that guy's kids at one point.
Yeah.
He's like, don't hurt my kids. He's like, oh, I haven't decided yet.
He's thinking about it though.
Yeah, he's thinking about it, or maybe he was just telling that to scare the shit out of him. Who knows? But I would not put anything past his character. He comes up with the idea to track down Gemma and Aiden through a local heroin dealer, which he meets through like some sort of ecstasy dealer. Like you see Bull in a club and he spots a guy who's like, okay, this guy sells drugs.
Yeah.
Like, you don't sell heroin? Who does? And he basically, what he does to the heroin dealer, oh my God. I mean,
it's pretty brilliant though. It's, I love he just like strong arms the ecstasy dealer into bringing him to the heroin dealer, and then and this reminds me a lot like a Ben Wheatley scene though. This scene,
yes,
because it's
totally
very like very obvious characterization here. Like the heroin dealer is like this like older guy. He's probably one of these like remote like dudes who sits higher up and has everyone else doing his dirty work for him.
Yeah,
he's like drinking a protein drink or something.
Yeah, he's clearly a very eccentric kind of guy too. He's also sort of aloof. He does not realize the danger he's in by being in Bull's presence.
Yeah. Now Bull, instead of interrogating him like with threats, he just straight off like cuts his fucking hand off. Like, it's like he's just like, I don't got time for to like interrogate this guy. I'm just gonna break him first. So he like completely breaks this guy's will like right off the bat, cuts his hand off, cauterizes the wound, and the guy is like in shock, and he just extracts the information out of him as to where to find Gemma.
Yeah, and then uses him as a decoy.
Yes.
Basically, he gets this guy killed for no reason other than just being a heroin dealer. But like the Bull's rage for what heroin did to Gemma and his son was just like he's got no sympathy for this drug dealer whatsoever. None.
That's a good move, though, to just break the guy right away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And then use him as a decoy. Which brings us to the other like slow motion part where a Norm thing, is kind of some of the gun violence in this movie. Norm has a shotgun, and he's sort of creeping into Gemma's house to kind of, I don't know, to see if she's okay. And we see in very slow motion Norm accidentally discharge his shotgun and shooting his own daughter.
But doesn't kill her, though. He just wounds her, though. Yeah. That's definitely like some Guy Ritchie shit right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the slow motion for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
humor of it too, like, is very, like, again, like something you'd see. Like, it's very British. I'll say that.
yeah, yeah. And
Um,
like a Wheatley, like Guy Ritchie kind of thing for sure.
yeah, totally. Are you a Guy Ritchie fan?
I am actually. I like most of his stuff.
Yeah, I like that last one he did with it was really dark about the bank robber.
Yeah, you told me about that one. He has another movie coming out apparently.
Yeah, yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, hit or miss for me, but anyway, um, yeah, and again, all these awful people. You almost feel bad for him the way Bull dispatches. He seems to have a habit of dispatching someone in front of their loved one.
Yeah.
It's sort of a pattern with him.
I didn't feel bad about him killing Norm though, man.
Not real well. Norm says you got hell to look. He says to Norm, "You've got hell to look forward to." When Norm asks him, "How is this possible?" Which I thought was just such a brutally sinister line. Like, you're gonna die. There's nothing you can do about it, and he kills him by sitting on him. I mean, in front of his daughter. The daughter is begging for Norm's life, not begging for her own, but begging for her father's life, and Bull is just sitting on him to suffocate him. I mean, there's a dark sense of humor running throughout this movie for sure.
And of course, after Gemma gives up where to find Aiden.
Do you think Bull is enjoying any of this? Like, you don't get a sense he's getting a lot of joy from this. Like, the killing is just like, I have to do this. My son is the main goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that wherever he's existing, like his spirit exists, it's beyond any happiness or joy. These are just tasks that he needs to do, and the only thing that would make him content is to know that his son Aiden is at least alive and has a fighting chance at having a normal life.
Yeah, and it's at that point, like, we realize the movie shows, this is my one nitpick, that it's a supernatural movie. Because you see that this entire time, Bull's eyes are black, which was hidden from the audience, but not from not from the people in the film. They see him for what he truly is. The audience doesn't, but they do. I could have done without the flashbacks to previous scenes showing that Bull's eyes were black. I would have much liked it if they just showed him in that moment in the church with his black eyes, and then you're like, oh, okay, he really is dead.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't need to have the black eyes at all. Actually, just like I mean, the scene actually at the end with so he locates his son Aiden, and he's on the street basically, homeless, on drugs.
Yeah,
and he brings him to a church, and to help him get better. And he has money he stole from the drug dealer, actually.
Yes, yeah,
Which is awesome. Like, he's like, the ex guy, he sends him out. He's like, keep the pills, leave the money. So
yeah, he throws the ex dealer a bone.
Yeah, you can take the drugs, just leave me the cash. So
yeah.
So he collects up his son Aiden and brings him to a church and that's when the priest sees him who's a woman, by the way. I didn't realize women can be priests. I didn't know that.
Oh, a vicar.
A vicar.
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't
know. I don't know if there's a difference. There might be.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she sees him and she's like, "There's this fucking demon here. This thing from hell."
Yeah.
That's all I needed. I didn't need to see the black eyes either. Obviously, okay, he was killed, he was burned alive, he came back from the dead, he was in hell, and now he's like, finished his mission here on Earth in the mortal plane, and then he's going back to hell probably.
Yeah, you see him back at the hole he was buried in at the end of the movie, which I thought was a really nice touch.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my one complaint, the flashbacks to earlier. I was like, I just don't like it in general, where like the movie's like, see, we fooled you. Because really, it's not even that big of a twist. The movie really kind of tells you what it is all throughout the movie. You learn that, okay, this guy was murdered. He's dead. He's a spirit of vengeance.
You kind of know exactly. Like, there's no real, even though we spoiled the shit out of this movie for everyone, you know that he's like, you definitely know what's going to happen in this film. It's never like in question, and it's all just a matter of how is this going to happen. Like, what's the the pathway towards this inevitable end, and that's why I can watch this movie like 7, 8, 9, 10. I can watch this movie every few months and still enjoy it.
Yeah, it is so good, so efficient, not an ounce of fat on it. Really well acted, man. We have to start referring to Neil Maskell as the Great Neil Maskell,
Yeah, dude,
because
fucking
he's amazing.
so good, man. And like it's almost like if you want to have a good night of double features, you watch this and Kill List. You know what I mean? And the only thing that would have made this movie better is if Michael Smiley was in it too.
Yeah, it's like one of like the fuck. He would have made. You know what? He would have been great as the heroin dealer.
Yes, he would have been excellent as the heroin dealer.
Yeah, yeah, it would have been fucking perfect. Yeah, man. Like, obviously not related to Kill List, but there are some very similar themes and ideas going on, and of course, both centered by a great performance from Neil Maskell, who probably is a very nice guy in real life, but like is very good at playing these really just fucking unhinged lunatics.
Yeah, totally. And it's just that ultra realism, even though this is a supernatural film, it definitely fits in line with like a lot of these other sort of gritty, pseudo realistic crime films.
Yeah, totally. And even though, yeah, it has a supernatural element, it never goes over the top. There's no CGI or anything like that, or like, demons taking him to hell or anything like that. It's just it's very, very grounded.
Yeah, there really isn't any special effects aside from like some violence, like the hands getting cut off, like that kind of stuff. Just like your basic gore effects that would happen in any kind of like crime related film.
Totally. So I remember what we gave it originally. Have you changed your mind at all? What do you give this at the end of the day?
I give it a 5 out of 5, man.
I do too. Yeah, I originally gave it a 4.5, but after watching it again this morning, I was, you know what? This movie is pretty much perfect.
And it ages like a fine wine, if you will. It really, you can watch it and it's not something that you see the holes necessarily. It's like you can rewatch it and still enjoy it. And that's what I mean. Like that's why it was a Blu-ray purchase, like some sort of like, I threw some money down for this because I got like some, special edition UK thing, with a book and everything. So I'm all about this movie.
Oh yeah, me too, man. And it's a shame most people don't know it exists. I don't talk to many people who have seen it or heard of it. I've managed to turn a few people onto it, like we both have, talking about it on the podcast. I think we've mentioned it 2 or 3 times before actually covering it.
Yeah. I don't know if Mike's seen this yet, but I know he should. I know that.
Oh, he's got to see this.
Yeah, Rennie's the one who told me about it, so he's seen it. Our mutual friend Selden Hunt, I recommended this to him, and he quite enjoyed it. So yeah, it's.
Oh yeah, this is totally up Selden's alley. Yeah, I missed that guy.
Yeah, he's actually turned me on to a bunch of cool like Australian like hard-boiled like crime movies.
Oh man, Selden's the best for that. We talked movies for hours. He did a tour with us in ISIS. Yeah. He was our lighting guy, which he never actually did the lights, but technically he was our lighting guy.
I could see him being in one of these movies actually.
Oh, totally. Yeah, yeah. If you didn't know Selden, you just saw him, you might be afraid of him. And
he's got like just that fucking hard ass like Australian accent too, man.
Yeah, he's also almost 7 feet tall, so he's got that going for him. But he's the nicest guy ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, perfect 5 for me. Everyone needs to watch this. I don't see how anyone can find deep flaws in this movie or not find it at least somewhat enjoyable. It is relentlessly dark. It is brutal and violent. Also really funny at times without going over the top in any aspect. Doesn't go over the top in any aspect. Yeah, this is fantastic. This will be This will when we're talking about the great horror movies of the the last 25 years. This will be mentioned as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, actually, I've been compiling a list because I'm trying to like write something for the first quarter of the new century about post millennial horror. And this is in the same chapter as Kill List.
As it should be. Yeah. Good call. And thank you for turning me on to this. This is now one of my favorites.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Take care.
Bye.
When I first came to London, I was only 16, with a fiver in my pocket and my old dancing bag. I went down to the Dilly to check out the scene, but I soon ended up upon the old main drag. There the he-males and the she-males paraded in style, and the old man with the money would flash you a smile. In the dark of an alley you would work for a five, for a swift one up the wrist down on the old main drag. In the cold winter nights the old town it was chill, but there were boys in the cafes who'd give you cheap pills. If you didn't have the money, you'd cajole and you'd beg. There was always lots of chewing on the old main drag. One evening as I was lying down in Leicester Square, I was picked up by the coppers and kicked in the balls. Between the metal doors at Vine Street I was beaten and mauled, and I ruined my good looks for the old main drag. In the tube station the old ones who were on the way out would dribble and vomit and grovel and shout, and the coppers would come along and push them about. And I wished I could escape from the old main drag. And now I am lying here, I have had too much booze. I've been spat on and shot on and raped and abused. I know that I am dying and I wish I could beg for some money to take me from the old main drag.